close your eyes and picture this. A vast, untamed wilderness stretching endlessly before you, shaped by the slow retreat of ancient glaciers and the powerful forces of nature. The air is crisp, the earth is damp, and with the thaw of the ancient ice roams across this land, towering megafauna, things like mammoths and mastodons, creatures so massive that today they would honestly seem like relics from another world. This world we're imagining today is Ohio, except this is Ohio over 13,000 years ago, a time when the first whispers of human civilization were just beginning to stir, as far as we know. The people of which we're going to be talking to are commonly referred to as the Paleo-Indians. So the Paleo-Indians are considered the first Ohioans in a sense, and they were pioneers. They were resilient, innovative, and deeply connected people to the rhythms of their natural world. They were armed with finely crafted tools and very intimate knowledge of their environment. And with this knowledge and these crafted tools, they carved out a life in a landscape as harsh as it was beautiful. So what drove them to this land, modern-day Ohio? Well, the secrets could very well lie buried beneath the soil of Ohio. Secrets that could challenge everything we think we know about the first Americans and really human civilization in totality. So in this video, we're going to delve into the lives of these ancient trailblazers, exploring their world from their eyes, from their struggles, and their extraordinary ability to thrive in the face of the unknown. To truly understand the lives of Paleo-Indians, we first must step into their world. A world that's both familiar and honestly, utterly alien. Over 13,000 years ago, Ohio was a land in transition, caught between the icy grip of the last ice age and the warming breath of a new epoch. So I want you to imagine vast, open tundra landscapes giving way to the slow spread of forests where rivers carved fresh paths through the land, fed by the melt of towering glaciers retreating to the north. The air was cooler, crisper, and filled with the calls of megafauna, giant creatures like mammoths and mastodons, and other things like giant sloth and giant beaver that roamed the plains in search of food. And these animals were more than just a source of sustenance for the Paleo-Indians. They were also integral to the ecosystem at the time, and they helped shape the land as we know it with their sheer size and numbers. And yet, as the climate shifted, so too did the balance of life, challenging every living thing to either adapt or to perish. And unfortunately for the megafauna, they perished. The landscape wasn't barren after the megafauna disappeared. In fact, hardy plants took root in the fertile soil left behind by the glaciers, creating the beginnings of new rich ecosystems. Rivers like the Ohio River and its tributaries teemed with life, their waters nourishing both the land and the creatures that called it home, including that of Paleo-Indians. For the Paleo-Indians, these natural features weren't just a backdrop, they were lifelines for generations to come. And this was not a passive environment either. It was still very alive, very dynamic, and of course, constantly changing. The Paleo-Indians learned to read its rhythms, to anticipate its moods. Their survival depended on the understanding of the land in ways that we can honestly scarcely imagine today. And it's here, in this shifting, challenging environment, that the story of Paleo-Indian Ohio truly begins. Now, I want you to imagine waking up in a world where every decision could mean the difference between life and death. This was the daily reality for Paleo-Indians living in Ohio at the time. Their lives were a delicate dance with nature, one that required constant ingenuity and adaptability. And every moment was shaped by the question of survival. And their shelters were not grand or permanent either, but they were more practical and built to endure the elements for short amounts of times while they traversed the land in search of game. Animal hides stretched over wooden frames provided warmth and protection during the icy winters. And these homes were designed for people who were, of course, always on the move, following the migration patterns of the great beasts they relied upon for their sustenance. And this hunting skill, or this hunting style, was not just a skill, it was an art, a necessity, and a way of life. Probably a way of life that they would have incorporated into some sort of shamanic religion of some sort. But nonetheless, they were armed with finely crafted Clovis points, the infamous Clovis points, and these points were used for things like atlatl darts, spears, even things like knives. Not necessarily Clovis points in themselves, but the Clovis culture did indeed use different knives and flake blades and that sort of thing. These early hunters usually pursued mammoths, mastodons, and the great megafauna we were discussing earlier, and these creatures were far larger and more dangerous than creatures that we would hunt today. Success required more than strength. It demanded strategy, it demanded teamwork and cooperation, as well as an intimate knowledge of the land and the roaming patterns that these animals would take. They didn't rely on just these animals and the meat alone. Paleo-Indians were also expert foragers, gathering nuts, seeds, and edible plants that grew in Ohio's fertile soils. They understood the seasons and the cycles of growth, harvesting what they could to sustain their bands through the harsher months. And this understanding of the seasons and cycles would eventually lead to the great agricultural revolution of the mound-building cultures. Even things like fire to the Paleo-Indians as well, the most basic yet essential tool to survival, was really a testament to their genius. It provided warmth, cooked their meals, and warded off predators lurking in the night. These early humans knew how to make the most of every resource at their disposal, turning a challenging existence into a quote-unquote thriving way of life, thriving for their time. Their days were spent not in leisure most of the time, but in mastery of tools, of nature, and of survival itself. It was a constant learning practice, a learning process for these people. In every act, whether building a shelter or preparing a meal, they forged a connection to their environment, and they had room for improvement for generations to come. In the hands of the Paleo-Indians, stone was transformed into a tool of survival, and this is probably one of the biggest revolutions of really human history, if you think about it. It was a weapon, a lifeline, and a testament to the human ingenuity and adaptability to survival. Their world might seem primitive by today's standards, but make no mistake, these were people of remarkable innovation, adapting to their environment with tools that were as effective as they were sophisticated. Imagine crafting a spearhead from a single piece of flint, each strike of the hammerstone calculated with extreme precision. And when you do something like this, the result would be something similar to a Clovis point, honed to a razor-sharp edge and designed to penetrate the thick hides of mammoths and mastodons and megafauna alike. These weren't just tools, they were masterpieces of design and proof of a deep understanding of material properties and physics. The Paleo-Indians weren't just hunters, they were engineers. They knew where to find the best flint and chert, and they traded these valuable materials across vast distances. For example, Ohio's own Flint Ridge provided some of the highest quality stone in the entire Ohio River Valley, and its vibrant colors were as striking as its utility in the past. And their innovation didn't just stop at these quote-unquote weapons or tools for hunting. These early people developed methods to process and store food as well, which was huge for developing societies later on. They used techniques to tan hides for clothing and shelter, as well as for storage of things. And they had different ways to create fire with nothing more than just natural elements. They turned their environment into a resource itself. They also used things like bone and wood, of course, and the different stones that they knew a lot about to craft tools that extended their capabilities and also ensured their survival. And this constant drive to innovate really is a human trait, and it wasn't born from luxury. It really was born from necessity. Every tool, everything they engineered, every method they developed was a response to the challenges of their world. They didn't just survive in the harsh environment of Paleo-Indian Ohio. They really thrived, especially when you compare it to other mammals that were living at the time. And they pushed the boundaries of what was possible with the resources at hand. In these tools, we see the origins of human ingenuity, a spark of creativity and adaptability that would carry our ancestors forward into a new epoch, a new age, if you will. So picture a small group of people huddled around a fire under a starlit sky in Ohio today. They're not bound by blood, but they're bound by a shared purpose of survival, depending on one another's strength, skills, and knowledge. This was the essence of Paleo-Indian society, a tightly knit community built on cooperation and trust. So life wasn't solitary at all for these ancient people. They traveled in small bands, likely no more than 25 to 75 individuals, forming mobile units that moved with the seasons and the migrations of game. Each person had a distinct role to play. Hunters tracked and brought down prey. Gatherers foraged for plants and seeds. And elders, the most important role of all, passed down the wisdoms and skills critical for survival of future generations. These bands probably weren't rigid hierarchies like we would imagine in later cultures, but more so fluid groups where every member contributed to the whole. Decisions were likely made collectively in a way, drawing on the experience and insight of the group, and elders probably played a significant role in decisions. And in a world where resources were scarce, cooperation wasn't just an advantage, it really was essential to thrive in this environment. So around the fire, around the campfires, stories would be told, legends of great hunts, lessons about the land, and perhaps even the first whispers of spiritual beliefs and religions that are now lost to history. This oral tradition was the glue that held their culture together, and it was a culture indeed. This oral tradition was also a way of preserving knowledge and identity without a written language that we know of. Even in such a harsh environment, there is room for a joy and connection between people. Tools weren't just practical, some were intricately crafted and engineered, suggesting a certain appreciation for beauty and function. These people weren't just surviving, they were creating, learning, and sharing together a way of life that would echo through generations beyond. It's really a humbling thought if you think about it. In the vast wilderness of Paleo-Indian Ohio, community was their greatest tool, something that's somewhat lost to society today. It really was their strength, their refuge, and the foundation of everything that they built together. Long after the glaciers had melted and the great mammoths had vanished, the legacy of the Paleo-Indians still remained, etched into the land that they once called home. Though their footprints may have faded, their impact on the history of Ohio and history abroad, and the story of humanity, really, is undeniable. These ancient pioneers, if you will, were more than just survivors of a harsh Ice Age world. They were trailblazers, charting paths through an untamed wilderness unknown to humankind, and they laid the groundwork for the cultures that would follow here in the future. Their finely crafted tools, like the infamous Clovis points, set a standard for innovation that resonates even with us today. These artifacts uncovered by archaeologists tell us not just about their skills, but about their resilience, adaptability, and ability to thrive in a world of constant change. And their legacy isn't just in the stone tools and in the archaeological evidence, it's also in the landscapes that they altered, the migration routes that they established, and the knowledge that they passed down to future generations. Each fragment of flint, each ancient hearth speaks of a people who understood the land in ways we are only beginning to discover. The Paleo-Indians also left us with a deeper appreciation of what it meant to be human. Our drive to innovate, to connect, and to endure even in the face of overwhelming odds. They remind us that the challenges of the past were met with courage and ingenuity, qualities that still define us to this day. And as we walk the modern forests and modern fields of Ohio today, it's worth pausing to consider the echoes of those who came before us. Their story is our story, a reminder that we are part of an unbroken chain stretching back through millennia, connected by the land, the tools, and the enduring spirit of humanity itself. Every chapter of history, no matter how profound, eventually draws to a close. And even ours will one day, of course. So for the Paleo-Indians of Ohio, the end of their era was not marked by a single event, but by the slow, unrelenting march of change. As the Ice Age faded, the world that they had adapted to for thousands of years began to transform into something new, something more full and of opportunity and fraught with challenges ahead. The great megafauna, which had provided food for them and tools and clothing, had gradually disappeared, driven to extinction by, we think, a combination of both climate change and overhunting. The open tundras and grasslands gave way to dense forests, which altered the very landscape that these people had mastered. Rivers had shifted, ecosystems had evolved, and the rules of survival itself had changed completely. But the Paleo-Indians didn't vanish because of this. They adapted. Their descendants learned to thrive in the changing world, which means that they did too, because they had to pass the knowledge on, right? So, in a sense, they were able to develop new tools, new techniques, and new ways of living that would define the Archaic period ahead. And the Archaic period is where we see the beginning of the infamous mound builders, such as the Adena culture and the Hopewell culture, etc. They traded their reliance on big game hunting for a more diverse subsistence strategy, one that included fishing, foraging, small game hunting, and of course, inevitably, agriculture in itself. This transition wasn't just about survival, it was about the resilience and evolution of humanity itself. The knowledge, skills, and traditions of the Paleo-Indians became the foundation for the cultures that followed ahead. Even ours today, because if you really think about it, modern Native American tribes gave pioneers of the United States their knowledge of a lot of modern agriculture, which of course comes from the Paleo-Indians. So there's something haunting about the story of the Paleo-Indians. As we unearth their tools, their campsites, and their ancient fire pits, we're reminded of the fleeting nature of human existence in itself. How long are we really going to last here? I mean, if you think about it, the Paleo-Indians barely lasted anything in the grand scheme of things. Their era ended, but their impact still endures, so maybe it speculates that we will live on through our descendants in the future, much, much farther into the future, hopefully. And we'll be woven into the fabric of the land and the memory of humanity itself, just like the Paleo-Indians of the past. The end of the Paleo-Indian era wasn't a goodbye, it was a turning point, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. In their story, we find not just the origins of our past, but also the seeds of our future. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, you'll certainly enjoy my other content because it's pretty much all dealing with subjects similar to this. So make sure to check that out. Subscribe if you're new. And if you would like to support the channel in other ways, I also have a membership page where you can join my membership page for things like early access, member-only videos and live streams, as well as you could give me video ideas that I potentially will cover a video on. And we can correlate with one another for information, and we can build something awesome, an awesome video for the people here to enjoy. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your guys' support. And until next time, it's been Doogie. I love ya.